State of Play this week features Mark Eichman. Dave Baylor joins us from NKS Distributors. Stephanie Hansen from the law firm of Young, Conaway, Stargett and Taylor is also with us. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And we also have a special guest this week, Wilmington Mayor James Baker.
This tension between council and adversarial issues between council and administration has to stop. And I'm willing to stop, but I'll fight you tooth and nail if you want. Doesn't matter to me. Either you make peace or you don't. You want to have war for 600 more days? Fine.
The mayor getting a little feisty. I guess the question is, are you guys surprised?
Nothing
Dave?
surprising me with Mayor Baker. I mean, you know, he's been an elected official for a lot of years, and one thing I think we've learned is when you hold an office for so long, no matter what office it is, and he's held a couple different offices, at some point in time, your ability to compromise and govern and work together kind of gets swayed. And he's at the pinnacle of being the mayor, and he figures it's his city and he'll do what he wants.
Now, he's been elected 3 times. Would his body of work, you guys know his body of work better than most, does he deserve the opportunity to go off like that? Has he earned that right? What do you think?
Well, I don't know, earn the right to go off like what? I mean, I don't think it was very statesmanlike. I think he kind of kicked the colorfulness up a notch that I don't think reflects well. And, you know, having been in elected office myself, there's life after elected office, and sometimes you have to, you know, you have to be careful of the stage that you're setting for yourself. And I just hope that he hasn't set himself up, particularly if he's going to be, you know, living and staying and working within the city. He hasn't set himself up for some bad times ahead. You know, you have to work with everybody. This is a small state and a small town.
Now, in politics, things get a little heated, obviously. You've been involved in that, but did he pick the wrong place to do it, out in public in this type of meeting?
Totally.
That's the way he's always been, though. It's not like, you know, you asked if it was a surprise. That's always been his form, is to do that, you know, kind of showmanship, displaying his kind of displeasure and anger, I guess, in public, in front of
If that was Governor Markell, I think all of us would be surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
Mayor Baker, we're not surprised. Should he have done it in that forum?
Right.
Absolutely not.
It did not appear to be out of character.
No, not at all.
Now, do you think his antagonistic approach for all these years has helped or hurt Wilmington? Is it helping to get things done? Anybody?
Well,
that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. I mean, right now, what is the measuring standard? What are you using to say, are we getting things done? Because if you look right now,
I guess the standard of living for those who live in Wilmington.
The quality of life in Wilmington right now is questionable.
And those who work here?
It's questionable. I mean, you have unemployment, which is a state issue, but you also have buildings that are vacant. You don't have any businesses that are coming downtown. You have crime that's out of control. You have shootings that are occurring. So when you want to measure his success, right now I think there's a big question mark next to it.
That sounds like a no. What about you? Do you think the city has improved over the last several years here? Anybody?
Well, if you take it from the beginning, from when Mayor Baker first took office, which was 2000, you know, there's a very big difference from the Sills administration where he took over from, and a lot of the problems that were in city government at the time have sort of been resolved earlier in the mayor's tenure. There's new problems now, so it's hard to compare and really say.
All right, this story kind of spins off a little bit. Let me explain here. All right, City Councilman Steve Martelli, a frequent panelist right here on State of Play, apparently was not satisfied with a recent briefing by Mayor Baker and decided to crash an editorial board meeting at the News Journal. Eventually, he left after it was made clear that he was not invited. So who's at fault here? Martelli for showing up uninvited, or Baker's staff for telling a member of the City Council that basically you're not allowed to sit in on this meeting? Who's at fault? Steve, who is unfortunately is not here this week, or the mayor's staff?
Well, the way I look at it is that the mayor's a public official, and to a certain extent, he's going to the News Journal. So it's not really a private meeting. Anything that he says to the News Journal can be printed. I don't know why Steve conversely could not appear at that meeting. However, that being said, Steve probably should have extended himself to the mayor and the chief of staff that he was coming to the meeting.
Yeah, maybe if Steve, makes a little phone call and says, hey, I would like to be in on this meeting, he'd probably be allowed to go there. But I think Steve was obviously making, no?
I don't think so.
If he called and asked the mayor's staff, if he called up and asked Bill Montgomery if he could show up to the meeting, I don't think he was like, yeah, sure, come on down. Because they already had their meeting with members of city council.
All right, hey fellas, I'd just like to sit in. Any problem with that? I mean, no secrets here, right? But I think Steve was making a point. Let me show up here uninvited, see what happens.
Well, and I think
stir things up a little.
I think that it certainly did stir things up, and I think that may have been the genesis of what we saw earlier of the mayor accusing city council of being adversarial and calling people out on council in chambers when he's making his budget proposal. You'd shake your head all you want, but I'm telling you that's the way it's happening. Kind of calling them out. I'm not sure if he might not have been talking about Martelli, and that may have kind of launched the sort of rant we saw.
This doesn't help the image of elected officials and the folks that govern in the city of Wilmington. It doesn't help. This was another thing that sort of throws a bad light on the people that serve and give their time. I mean, we're starting to look like the town of Milton. If I read another article about all the drama that's going on in the town of Milton or some of our other little small towns, now Wilmington is beginning to look. It's beginning to appear in that way. It's just not a good thing.
We'll see how this plays out over the next few weeks during the budget hearings and budget address. All right, switching gears a little bit, the News Journal reports the feds are looking into a possible conflict of interest regarding Senate Pro Tem Anthony DeLuca, who also works at the state's Department of Labor, and whether he is benefiting from his elected position. There is a term for folks who are elected officials and work for the state government, double dippers. Is that the case here? Do we have a double dipper who's perhaps dipping in too much?
I think you have to, does it look right? No. I mean, he took the job after he got elected, so there's going to be questions. He's accountable to, and he sits in a high office in the legislature, and now he's also working for the governor. Right. So he's in actuality his boss's boss to a certain extent, because he can hold the governor accountable for certain things in his legislative role. So I think there is a real murky area that we're dealing with here, and hopefully the powers to be will work behind the scenes to get this resolved.
Right.
Well, it's more than just double dipping as well. I mean, there's a possible violation, a federal violation of the Hatch Act, whereas anyone that's funded with their job position that's funded by federal dollars cannot be involved in any way, shape, or form in politics. And I mean, this was put into effect back in the 1930s, and it was specifically targeted and has been used at that time against Democrats, in particular labor unions. Now here we've got Tony DeLuca, Democrat, big labor union. This is the Department of Labor issue. I think it's going to get really sticky, and may not turn out very well.
So if he's found in violation, DeLuca could lose his job, or the state could lose federal funding. Correct?
Right.
Is that how it works?
Right.
That's correct.
Or they have to shift federal funding completely away from him and find a way to bring back those areas of the Department of Labor that were given the short end of the stick for such a long time. I think the problem has been what they were saying, they had to shift money and then they weren't able to hire the people that they needed to investigate the complaints of discrimination. And so those people have been waiting for 2 years, and that's unacceptable.
Right.
And it's much more than just like double dipping on the state level, like you said, because it is now a federal issue. And if you're talking about the state losing potentially federal funds, a much higher level than simply somebody holding 2 state jobs.
But here's the question: wouldn't somebody in the either Attorney General's office or the governor's office review these potential conflicts before they occur?
Coincidentally or not, there is a bill that just was filed in the House that says, no double dipping. If you're an elected into the legislature, you cannot have a state job after that. So, if this was in place 10 years ago, this would not be in it.
Correct.
Thanks, panel. Stephanie Hansen, Dave Baylor, and Mark Eichmann.